14th, streaming on the District of Summerland YouTube channel at youtube.com, District of Summerland. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available for the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. Members of the public may access the meeting or participate in the following ways: by viewing live or recorded on the YouTube channel. If you wish to speak during the meeting, those who have not registered in advance but wish to speak during the public comment opportunities may connect to the meeting by calling the meeting conference line at 778-907-2071 and entering meeting ID 506-489-9374 and passcode 485186. After I have provided everybody who has pre-registered with an opportunity to comment, the floor will be open to those on the conference line. Corporate Officer, any introduction for late items? Okay, thank you. And welcome back. Council approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Van Elfen and Councillor Holmes, all in favor? Thank you. And adoption of the minutes of the May 25th regular afternoon meeting. Anything there to report? Okay, Councillor Patton, seconder. Councillor Van Elfen, all in favor? Thank you. And on to item 5, delegations. I will pass this over to... Who's introducing these folks? Would you like me to do that? Yes, the delegation. Sure. Okay. Welcome to Janice Lieb, Vic Jensen, and Ellen Wood, all with the Trail of the Okanagan Society. Welcome to our meeting, and please go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, I'm just about to share screen. Hold with me for a second. Now, can everybody see that? I'm seeing a yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll just start. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about the Trail of the Okanagans. We are an advocacy group with a vision of a 370-kilometer hiking and biking trail from Sicamous to Brewster, Washington, with a specific focus on the section between the Bennett Bridge and the international border. The full trail can be divided almost exactly into 3 sections of 125 kilometers, one in Washington State, one from Kelowna North, and our section between the Bennett Bridge and the border. We have the toughest challenge as there are approximately 100 different trail sections to connect, running through 3 First Nations reserves, 2 regional districts, and 70 communities, of course, including Summerland. Our challenge is to find agreement and support from all of the groups along this route. While the obvious reasons why the trail is important to Summerland are listed on this slide, we would like to focus on the last one. Many people do not know that the Okanagan is ranked low in a diversity of tourism amenities. While we have great beaches and wineries, as a tourism destination, we could do better. Rail trails have proven to be highly popular across North America and Europe, and this trail can offer another major amenity to the Okanagan to support and connect those that we already have. Rail trails have proven to be almost universally economically beneficial. Specific to the Okanagan Rail Trail's economic impact assessment found that the trail would extend the tour season by a few months on either side of summer, as cyclists typically come earlier and stay later. It found that property in proximity of trails in the Okanagan have a 15 to 30% higher property value upon resale, and it found that a trail would have significant and positive impact on business activity. The study stated that if the Okanagan Rail Trail was connected to Sicamous and down to Osoyoos, it would vault the trail into one of international significance because it would then be of a scale to attract the international cycle tourism sector. It also projected that there would be 500,000 users of the Okanagan Rail Trail in its 5th year of operation. It actually met that goal in year 1, has exceeded it since, and the trail is yet to be fully connected. As a result of the numbers now using the Okanagan Rail Trail, every community along the route has or is in the process of building links to the trail to bring those 500,000 people directly to their business districts. Summerland has a unique advantage in that the trail runs directly through town, immediately providing this connection to our business district. Now, while the 50 kilometers of the Okanagan Rail Trail is great, to attract the next level of tourism, it needs to be longer. Cycle tourists look for a tour of about 4 to 7 days with a ride of about 50 to 80 kilometers each day. They want a trail that is safe, comfortable, and most importantly, separated from motorized traffic. This is why we're advocating for the connection of the trails into one, because it puts us right into that sweet spot to attract this larger market. But there is a caveat. To attract the numbers noted, the trail must be built to an all ages and ability standard. The safer the route design, the more people attracted to riding. Generally, this means a protected path or a traffic separated cycle path. Painted lines on a roadway defining a cycle lane in the majority of cases will not suffice. And more importantly, statistics have shown that they're not safe, and studies have shown that the majority of people won't use them. There are a growing number of grants available for active transportation and trail building. The biggest was just announced by the federal government, which will quadruple the amount of money available for this sector to $400 million to be spent over the next 5 years. To take advantage, though, note that there is a focus on best practice standards. Summerland cycling plan indicates the routes to be upgraded to have active transportation infrastructure and includes direction as to the type of trail to be built. The good news is, for the most part, it follows the all ages and abilities design standards included in the more recent 2019 BC Active Transportation Design Guide. So let's take a look at the proposed route for the Trail of the Okanagans through Summerland. It starts at the north end and connects to the Fur Brigade and runs along Garnet Valley Road. The route through town follows the District of Summerland cycle plan for the most part. We have indicated a slight change to take it closer to the school on Kelly, taking advantage of some quieter streets and bringing kids to the school. The key point to the route is that it provides a continuous connection from the north to the south through town, with a proposal to connect to the KVR trail beyond the trestle. We currently have a tentative meeting scheduled with the Penticton Indian Band to discuss their disposition to trails on reserve. The KVR trail does exist and people do use it, but it is not a sanctioned trail, nor is it currently in great shape. And the decision on how the PIB decides their lands are used is of course theirs, and we completely respect that. As an aside, we have recently had conversations with the West Bank First Nation and the Osoyoos Indian Band that have gone very well. So we're staying positive on this topic, but it is not yet resolved. Our conversations with the district planning staff have focused on creating a spine for a more fulsome active transportation network to connect to. The route in blue is our recommendation for priority, as it will create a connected path from Garnet Valley Road through town and to the multi-use path on Giants Head Road. Most importantly, we believe that making the spine the priority for design and construction will generate the largest benefit to Summerland residents and get more people cycling sooner. To conclude, our specific ask is for the blue route, which connects Garnet Valley Road to the trestle, to be planned and designed to a shovel-ready, all ages and abilities pathway standard as a priority in order to take advantage of grant funding as it becomes available. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Council, questions of our delegation today? Councillor Holmes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple questions, if I may, specifically regarding the Summerland to Penticton. And I'm just wondering if you could elaborate a bit on the decision to extend along the KVR trail as opposed to along the lake or along the highway, and what are the pros and cons of both of those, and why do you think the KVR route is more viable? Thanks.
Certainly. We have in the past advocated for the route along the highway, frankly, only because at the time the thought was that the KVR wouldn't be available. The most desirable route would be the KVR. It's away from motorized traffic. It has the right grades, and cycling in a narrow path beside very, very busy traffic isn't desirable. There was a study that was done by multiple partners that indicated a $30 million price tag to connect Penticton and Summerland. We had some issues with the estimate on that. And we actually recently did commissioned a study to look at some alternate designs for a pathway along the lake. And the two things came about. One, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure has recently installed concrete barriers along the lakeside and down the median, which has removed whatever buffer there was to put a trail along that piece. We need a 3-meter wide trail to go in. And when we had a look at it, and an engineering study and a survey together found that there would be several areas, not long, but several areas that would have to be infilled into the lake, which frankly is just not going to be accepted.
I believe you said that there were a couple of things that precluded that along the lake. The barriers was one, and the second one was putting it into the lake?
Correct. To get the width that we'd need for the trail, we would have to infill into certain sections. We did speak to an environmentalist wondering whether or not the riparian area could be addressed as part of that to make it viable. And the determination we got back was, the answer was frankly no.
Okay, Councillor Holmes, your second question, and then we'll go on to Councillor Van Elfen.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering if this is that route from Summerland Penticton, it's used already by commuters, and I know the emphasis for the Trail of the Okanagan is tourism, not commuting. But the reality is there's a huge number of cyclists already using the highway to go to Penticton every day. And I'm just wondering if those alternate designs, if anything, if they ever considered even the other side of the highway. And this has come up at the RDOS many times whenever MOT present to us. And I know that $30 million study, when it came to us, we were all shocked by the price. And surely there must be other ways. And so I'm just wondering if I would just encourage you not to give up on the highway, because it's already being used and it's going to continue to be used because it's the most direct route into Penticton. And I think we should continue looking at potential designs. And then my question is, you mentioned earlier that there are 500,000 users in year one of the rail trail. I'm just wondering how you came up with that number. And the reason I ask is because talking to the MOT about the commuters into Penticton, they've always said they have no way of gauging how many cyclists a day are using that route. And so I'm just wondering how you came up, how you're able to do it. Thank you.
Well, the $500,000 projection comes directly from the Okanagan Rail Trail's economic impact analysis. And officials with the Okanagan Rail Trail have been doing counts. They did that, I think, the first year that it was open. They haven't done it in the last year, but they were able to identify that they had more than 500,000 people using the trail during its first year. And of course, the section in Lake Country is not fully connected. Anecdotally, those numbers are even higher now. After the year of the pandemic, there were more and more people getting out onto the trails. So I can't speak more specifically to how they've done that, but they did have a method of counting people. So that's all I can offer at this time.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the Garnet Valley Road, are you talking there would have to be an upgrade then to the existing bike path to make it wider?
The BC Active Transportation Design Guides would likely say that a painted line on Garnet Valley would be okay, as long as the traffic volumes and the speed are acceptable. We think it should at least be ideally 5 to 6 feet wide on each side.
Okay.
There was originally a plan to have a cycle path of that width on the highway, or sorry, on Garnet Valley, but for whatever reason, before my time being part of the Trail of the Okanagans, it wasn't actually constructed that way. So maybe Vic or Ellen can speak to that.
Thank you.
Do either of you care to speak to that?
I'll speak to that. And it we did hope that there would be maybe a track or trail on one side that would be multi-use for horses, for bikes, people walking and running. But I understand that there was a lack of money or a misjudgment of money available. And at the time, they put the painted line in. And we had hoped that that would be our opportunity, because the upgrade on Garnet Valley Road was a major upgrade, and probably won't be upgraded again for a number of years. They put the water line in, and I think they upgraded sewer. So it was kind of a one chance deal, and it fell a bit short.
I think that your thoughts are absolutely correct. We have Chris Johnson. Oh, did you wish to speak to that, Graham? Okay to ask Chris if he could, yeah, because he's the Director of Development Services, or sorry, not the, pardon me, Brad. He is our Director of Works and Infrastructure, and he can bring all of us up to date on that, on why it was done that way.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. When the Garnet Valley project went ahead, there was the scope at the last, like right before the final submission for the grant application went in, there was an allocation, just a lump sum that was added to look at some sort of a bike network to go along the roadway. During the detailed design, we brought forward to council a number of times the cross-section design for the roadway and the topographical challenges and the limitations that we experienced through a number of sections along there. And trying to work within the existing width that we had and the topography on either side of the road, try to maximize the roadway surface as much as possible without getting into extreme costs to put in retaining walls or complete major excavations along there. So the majority of the road has a 1.1 meter bike lane on either side. There are sections that are along there where that is restricted down to, I believe, 0.6 of a meter on either side. And those sections are denoted with a share the road sign, and the actual shoulder line disappears, and then it's appears back when you get out of those sections. So it was a balance between costs and working within the existing roadway widths that we had to try to get the bike infrastructure along the entire section, but not exceed the existing budget and grant monies that we had for the project.
Thank you, Chris. Ellen?
Just another comment. Since the road went in, I believe we now have the garbage pickup, and unfortunately, those recycle and garbage cans often remain out on that road on the bike lane, which is not conducive always for biking or hiking along there.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Traynor.
Over the next while, we're going to be investigating more ways that we can get funding for Giants Head Road improvements. And we do have a shovel-ready project along there, which does include a bike lane, I believe. I'm wondering, Janice had mentioned that there was National Active Transportation Fund grants coming available over the next 5 years. Is the bike component of that project, would that be something that's eligible for a grant like this? I'm wondering maybe if our CAO knows about that. Or maybe something we could consider or look into. Because if we could get the biking portion of that project covered under this grant, that would be really great.
Yeah, I can speak to that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we've looked at the different components of the project between the water main, the road improvements, and the active transportation pieces. And I believe the active transportation portion is about $1.2 million of the total project cost. And so we could look at a active transportation grant for that piece itself. The current design includes a separated pathway from Hillborn, or sorry, from Harris down to the Y at Gartrell. And currently then there's just shoulder lanes from that section further south to Hillborn. That we could look at a redesign as well if there's a desire to have a separated path the entire length. We would then need to look at utility pole relocations and property acquisitions to have enough right of way to continue that separated path the full length to the south. But it is something that could be considered if we're looking at a grant application for the entire active transportation piece.
Okay, I think that would be a good idea because we already have a portion of Giant's Head with a really nice pathway. I think it would be a shame if we, left that out or if we missed this opportunity. So hopefully we can investigate whether we could get some money from this. I think this is a new program. I think it is. Anyhow, just something to consider. Thank you.
So following along with that, what Councillor Traynor raised, that would get us to the intersection, whether you go south down towards the highway or carry on Giant's Head Road to Hillborn. There also would be the expense of the piece for the little bit of Hillborn and then on to, I think it's Happy Valley Road, is it? That goes along to Summerland Suites, or is that Canyon View already? I'm not really sure, but I think you probably know which road I'm talking about. That would get you down to the trestle. So that would be in addition, cost-wise, that would be in addition to the intersection of Giant's Head and Hillborn. Correct? Okay. Yeah, that road's not in very good shape and it's not very wide, so that would be a challenge. But thank you, Councillor Traynor, for bringing forward that possibility, at least for the work that we're already doing on Giant's Head. It's a little bit of a change in the route, but if it's something that we're working on anyways, it sounds like a good option. Okay, anybody else have questions on this? Oh, Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Having done some cycling touring myself, notably out to Banff when the roads were about this wide on the between the painted line and the edge, I certainly see the attraction of going along the through the top route, the old railway bed above the highway. That's exactly the sort of thing that people touring would like to do. Great views, no buses and semis whistling by your ear. It's a different thing altogether than the commuter. I wouldn't want to discourage something being developed for commuters there, but I certainly see why you would support the top route, you might say. And I think you've got a good point there, Madam Mayor, about that last section, but at least there's very little traffic other than those going for ice cream at Summerland Suites and stuff. So that last little section to take you to the trestle and from Giant's Head Road, where it is much busier, is, not a big problem, but it certainly would be a great route over the trestle, and anybody from out of town would just think that's just a fantastic trip. And I hope we can do it.
Thank you, Councillor Barkwell. Could I have somebody receive this for information, please? Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Holmes, all in favor? Great, thank you. Thank you so much for the delegation, to all of you in the delegation this afternoon. It's pretty important to have the ask as well, so thank you for that. Okay. On to our next, our first public comment opportunity. Is there anybody on the line wishing to speak? No, I don't have anything. Okay, so we'll go on to the first of our business items. And I am going to do my best to move our agenda along as quickly as I can today. It's very full and there's no room on the evening agenda to move anything. We're already a little bit behind, so over to you, Graham, to introduce the next item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So one of Council's priorities is the development of an energy strategy. As you know, And already many projects have been engaged, and those are demonstrating good success towards this priority. However, the strategy that is being built is going to stitch all the various elements together and will focus on key priorities. Today, we're looking to get some guidance from council on what those priority projects should be. And a scorecard was created based on key factors. Obviously, the weightings can be changed and we could always look at that. But assuming our methodology appears reasonable, what we're looking for today is some selection from council on what priorities should be pursued once Jeremy gets a chance to walk folks through a little bit. And from that point, then we can move to finalize the strategy and bring it back to council for ratification in the future. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jeremy Storvold, who's our general manager of the electric utility.
Thank you for the introduction and the opportunity to bring us forward to Mayor and Council. So through this introduction, I'm going to be referring to the report and to the Council report. So if you could have that sort of handy so we can refer to certain pages. This report is presented as drafts so Council can provide some needed direction to move it forward or move to the next step. An energy strategy can be different things to different organizations. This strategy project list has been, it's a list of projects that are evaluated against a number of metrics that are important to council and that we covered last August. And that includes strategic priorities, environmental and social benefits, power system benefits, and economics. This report is written to be easy to read, easy to digest, and understand. There's 1 page per project opportunity. All evaluations in this report are high level and use publicly available information. As discussed with council last year, this report was meant to be low cost, and as such, no new analysis was done to write this report. So to start off, we'll go to the report itself. And if you go to page 2, the executive summary, the first list in the executive summary, right after the introduction paragraph, starting with 2.1 and going down to 2.15, that's the list of all of the projects that we cover in this draft report. And all of those projects were discussed with council back in August and that agreed that they should be in this report. The next list is the evaluation structure. So when last I spoke to council about this, we agreed on the topics, but we didn't have the weightings in there. So just using engineering judgment and feel for how things should go in terms of weighting, this is how we put it into the report. So strategic priorities at the top is weighted at 20%. And those are your headlines in the strategic priorities report: infrastructure investment, community resilience, alternative energy, and good governance. Definitions for all of these are near the back of the report. And then environmental and social, 20% weighting. And so that includes sustainability, vehicle charging, self-sufficiency, air quality, community pride, and economic development. The next is power system benefits at 10%. That's load diversification, demand reduction, system efficiency, and reliability. And then the heavy weighted section is economics, and that's rate of return. The rate of return, it's a simple IRR calculation with all of the capital costs upfront in 1 year, and then all of the consecutive years with revenue and O&M costs. It doesn't include depreciation, doesn't include value of land. So it is a simple IRR calculation. And again, definitions for all of these can be found on page 24. But we are going to go through an example project, so we'll touch on each one of those anyway. So if I could bring you to page 3 of the council report now. Moment to get there, page 3 of the council report. So here we have the table with all of the scores from the evaluation. And starting with electric fleet at the top and with geothermal at the bottom. Now we will go through an example, but I'll point out that the top half of this list are the top scoring. And it's interesting to note that electric fleet, the battery system, EV charges, the distributed generation program, and solar project are all in the top 50% of this list. And those are all projects that council is already actioning. And we didn't play with the numbers to achieve this. We just took this reasonable 20%, 20%, 10%, 50%, and this is how it hashed out. So it just landed that way. So it seems to me that council is being pretty consistent in their selection of projects. Projects that are in the top half that are not on council's list at this moment is the modern metering and micro hydro. Voltage conversions, actually, we've applied for a number of grants for that one, so it is on council's radar as well. So only 2 projects out of the 8 that are listed there, council has yet to make a move on. So I'd like to go through an example, and that would be wind. It's page 14 of the report. Page 14. So for wind, just as an example, to evaluate it, we used 3 information sources. The first is the Midgard report that was done for Summerland back in 2013. That project had some analysis for 2 large wind turbines at 2.3 megawatts each, and it had a negative rate of return in that report. So we thought we would change this a little bit and do a small wind turbine example and a 500 kilowatt example. So that's 10% of the size of the project that was evaluated back in 2013. So just a small wind turbine. Then we used the Okanagan wind project production numbers to estimate the wind resource in the Okanagan. Now that project isn't on Okanagan Lake, it's up the connector, but it's the closest project for our information. And then we used windustry.org to come up with the capital upfront costs for a project of this size. So that's just an example of the amount of research that we took. So we found resources that were available online, available in our own library, and went through those and created this 1-pager for wind. So I'll just walk through the evaluation on that page 14. So that's the blue and green. So infrastructure investment, you can see we have an X beside that one. And that's because infrastructure investment in this report means investment in existing infrastructure. So that's a project that would help us with our infrastructure deficit. So yes, a wind turbine would be adding new infrastructure, but it doesn't check the box on that because it's not investing in existing infrastructure. Community resilience, it has a check. And that's because it's another generation source in the community, another place to pull energy from if we were to lose our main source of energy. Alternative energy, because wind is an alternative energy. And good governance has an X, not because this is bad governance, but because it doesn't meet the definition of good governance in the strategic priorities report, which is better information for council to make decisions. Environmental and social sustainability, so it's a sustainable energy source, so it has a checkbox there. Vehicle charging, it's not an electric vehicle project, so no check. Self-sufficiency, check, because it's another energy source that's local to Summerland. Air quality, there's no improvement to air quality necessarily with a wind turbine, or not to an extent that qualifies a check mark there. It could be argued. Our source is hydro, but there is a percentage that isn't hydro. So it's a judgment on that one. And for the engineers writing the report, we left it with an X, but it could be a check. So some of this is subjective in the evaluation. And we're open to talking about any one of these. Community pride, for me, that would be a check. Economic development, there's certainly some economic development opportunities in terms of construction, so yes. And then power system benefits, load diversification. Load diversification is when, so Summerland has a mostly residential load. And if we had more industrial or more commercial, then it reduces some of our risk in terms of people putting solar on their building, on their homes, et cetera. That takes away some of our customer base. So if you diversify your load, it provides a number of benefits for electric utility. Demand reduction, it doesn't reduce our demand, or sorry, it does reduce our demand because we can have that generation during a peak time potentially. System efficiency, no. Reliability, yes and no. But in this case, because it's wind and you don't know when it's going to be there for you, it's not necessarily a reliable energy source. And then we have a negative rate of return, even for a small 500 kilowatt project.
Did you want to take questions as we move along, or?
Actually, I'm almost done, so I can just do a next steps kind of statement, and then we could.
Okay, and then we can
Mayor,
look at different things.
yeah.
Okay, is that okay with you, Councillor? Okay, thanks.
So next steps, this is council's energy strategy. So it can be whatever Summerland Council would like it to be. We can make changes, we can leave it how it is. Does this evaluation criteria meet your expectations and conviction? Is there something you would like to add to the report? Is this report in a state where maybe it's already in a state where you can make educated decisions on projects you'd like to see in our capital program? And we can spend money allocated to this report, maybe to something else. I would just note that this report is a tool for council decisions. Ultimately, that's what an energy strategy is. And so just because a particular project maybe lands in the bottom half of the report doesn't mean that council can't decide to do some research on that. It's simply a tool for decision making. It does show that council's historically made good decisions. I can take questions now. And we'll just be writing our hearts out as we're hearing some debate back and forth and any questions, and we can go from there.
We'll start with Councillor Carlson and then go to Councillor Van Elfen and then to Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All very exciting, and I think we need a little bit more information. I'm wondering if the data for the numbers, the return of negative 2.8% is based on that report from 2013, which would have used data from prior to that, or is that what it would cost now?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For wind in particular, we actually used values from a website that provides capital costs for different size of wind projects. And so we use the number there and then use current existing O&M costs and maintenance costs. So it is not, those numbers are not from the 2013 report. And the 2013 report was for a project about 10 times the size. So we reduced it down just to provide some variety there.
That's very helpful. Thank you. My understanding is that costs since then have come significantly down when it comes to projects like wind. So I'm glad that you used some accurate data. Thanks, Jeremy.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the energy strategy projects, page 3, at the bottom says geothermal was not feasible given the resource in Summerland, so was defaulted to 0. You lost me there.
Thank you, Councillor. So geothermal, we understand that the school here has a geothermal system for heating. For electric, our understanding is you need a significant heat differential to run, essentially you're running a turbine with the geothermal resource. And so we used a BC Hydro study that looked at geothermal across the province. And it didn't appear that there was a good resource in this area. And even the locations in British Columbia where there are expected good resources, BC Hydro has not acted on any of that because of the capital cost up front. It is so expensive to do that work. And for Summerland to have a questionable resource, we've left that one at zero.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Councillor Barkwell and then Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess the results of this report don't surprise me very much. It seems to be quite in agreement with the Midgard report that was done for Penticton last year. And things wouldn't have changed too much between last year and this year. So the top one was electric fleet. It seems like we're already on that route. I'm surprised to see that it shows financial savings like that. So then voltage conversion, well, we know about that and we're, plugging away at it, I guess. So can you elaborate a little bit more on modern metering?
Sure. So through the chair, modern metering, this is based on some work that was done in Ontario under time of use metering rates. And that is where users are charged different rates through the day. And they found quite a bit of peak savings. And users were actually moving some of their usage off of peak times. So for Summerland, because we are charged a demand rate for our electrical energy, if we're able to reduce the peak of our electrical load as a community, that saves us money. So when Ontario did these pilot projects, and much of Ontario, I believe, is on time of use rates now, they found there were savings, there were significant savings for the electric utilities. And especially if your peak time costs are significantly higher than your valley costs.
So when there's savings to the utility, are these savings then passed on to the consumer? Then is ultimately, although you're going to be paying a lot more, like I think in San Diego, maybe it's 40 cents a kilowatt hour at peak time. Mm-hmm. And our rate's 12 cents a kilowatt hour, but of course it gets cheaper at other times of the day. So if the calculation is if we did peak shaving, then ultimately the consumer would benefit from lower costs?
Yeah, through the chair, that would be a council decision. So let's say the electric utility, through any of these projects, found savings of $500,000 a year. That could be used to reduce rates. That could be used to fund capital project. That could be used to increase the dividend. It's all money in the bank, so can be used in a variety of ways.
Okay, all other things being equal is what I meant. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so would that require everybody's meter to be changed at once?
Yes.
Yeah, that's mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
Before I go on to you, Councillor Holmes, I just wanted to ask a question related to what Councillor Barkwell just asked, and that is how much of a savings, well, I guess this is a ridiculous question to answer, but I'm going to ask it. How much of a savings would you anticipate, and maybe Tammy would have an idea on this as well, if we, before we did the modernized metering project, if we started out the program with having a pretty intense education opportunity. So letting people know what it might look like and and the significant savings that you're talking about, if a portion even of the number of people, residential users, would move on to using most of their electricity in the evening hours or overnight. Like, I mean, you can run a dishwasher or your laundry facilities overnight. Do you think that would have any measurable impact?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The studies in Ontario show that it does, that there's a significant savings there in moving people off peak. The engagement with Summerlanders would need to be significant. You know, there'd have to be a major education program. There may even be economics for providing tools for our residents. So we have, say, 6,000 electrical utility customers. We may look at 6,000 in-home tools for people to be able to see when they're on peak. So depending on how the rate structure is set up, you may have a little light that comes on in your table, or you maybe you get a text message at that time saying, careful, you're on peak hours right now. Wait to run your dishwasher, wait to run that dryer until after 7 o'clock or what have you. So it would work really well also in conjunction with the battery energy storage system, because we'd also be shaving peak with that as well. So there's a lot of utilities using time of use rates to help reduce that peak, because of course, all of our infrastructure is built to handle that peak. So we put a lot of money into our infrastructure, and then it sits there sort of idling through the day, and then evening times, and we use it for a few hours, and then we're back to kind of idle. So it is a way to help level our load out, and for the rate structure we pay with our transmission wholesaler, it works.
Glad to hear that. I like the idea of a little, innocuous tool as well, kind of like to step people into that. Great, thank you. Councillor Holmes, and then Patton, and then, did you have any questions? And then back to Councillor Van Elfen.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess my question is this a energy strategy or an electricity strategy? And going back to Councillor Van Elfen's questions about geothermal and the school uses, if it's an energy strategy, would there be opportunity to look at if our new rec center, for example, goes where the existing one is on school property, would there be an opportunity to partner with the school board or tap into the school board's geothermal system to heat that new rec center and heat the pool and everything? So, or is that not relevant because this is really actually just an electricity strategy? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. The projects listed here include more than just electrical projects. For instance, there's the wood pellet plant at the landfill. It's just a project that's an energy project, and it's a local resource that we have, and we identified that last year as, okay, let's put that in this strategy and see what that looks like. How do the numbers fall out? So there are some things in here that are not specifically electrical, although there is a heavy electrical slant to this, because a huge amount of our energy use as a district is the electrical utility. So having an electric utility in our basket of tricks of the district, kind of bends this towards that quite a bit. But as far as the rec center goes, I'm sure we could talk to the school district about geothermal heating or what have you, and that should be really part of that project and evaluated as part of that project.
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have a question, and unfortunately it does go back to modern metering. We did, over this last while, we spoke about the two-tier metering program that we had in place, and we no longer have it. I noticed in Appendix 5, you talk about that the demand purchases were June, July, and August for those 3 months, which would be the highest demand because of air conditioning. My question is, with the modern metering, it is still going to be a heavily impact on those citizens that just run electrical, whether they run their dryer at 3 o'clock in the morning so they're not at peak times, or their dishwasher. But I don't think it matters what we look at, that any program that we do, whether you talk about time of use rates, that it will have a heavy impact on the electrical users that are strictly electrical within the municipality. So in a sense, it kind of is a two-tiered electrical system that we would be going back to, based on consumption. And am I kind of getting it right?
Yeah, through the chair, that's a great comment because it speaks to a couple of things. And the short answer to that last question is that it's sort of like a two-tier system, except I feel that the end user has more flexibility in where they're going to put their energy. So in the system that we used to have, where it was a two-tier system, you need to heat your home, and so it doesn't matter which time of day. You need a certain amount of energy every day to heat that home. Under a time of use structure, you can heat your home in off-peak hours, and then you can let that thermostat run down for the 4 hours of peak time, and then start bringing it back on. So you might have some fluctuations in your temperature, but at least you have some control. But the point I wanted to make was that this report doesn't cover that. This report is super high level. Here's a project, here's some high level evaluation. If council was really interested in modern metering, we have budget left in this report. We still have some budget that we have unspent. Council could choose a project or two to do further research into. And we could have a dedicated reports on some choice projects here. And we could leave this report as it is and potentially look at modern metering or in-pipe turbines or what have you. And we could actually spend some of that budgeted dollars on those, and then you'd have some more information on those. So that's what we mean by next steps and decisions from council now, is where would you like to take this from here? You could accept this how it is, and we could do further research into other projects, or we could add information to this. One bit of warning I have about energy strategies is this is my third one. In my third electric utility, and in other places, when we write these, I've been part of a team of people dedicated to doing this, and it takes a couple of years to write. So there's huge effort put in, tons of money spent. We've done this with about $1,000 per project opportunity. We could potentially just leave it at that. And if council felt there was enough information here to make decisions and maybe put money into other reports, as a suggestion.
Councillor Van Elfen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And then I know we've discussed this before, and because we're quite a large rural community, a lot of people don't have access to natural gas. So then I'm penalized because I don't have access to natural gas. My heating bill would be much less on natural gas versus electricity. So if we went to the modern metering concept, people on gas would probably, there'd be more people trying to convert to gas than to worry about peak. Possibly. I don't know. That's a whole different discussion, I guess, but it's just, like say, a lot of people don't have access to it, so. Thanks.
Through the chair, so I would just say we didn't dive into that level of detail in this report. And again, so that's something we would like to know. If we took, and I'm sure some of the Ontario studies have delved into that. And we could show, here's an example customer, how would their bill change? This person's an electric heat customer. It may be less, it may be more. So we haven't studied that.
Councillor Carlson?
Thank you. That comment just made me think of the new federal program that has been announced. I'm not sure how many billions of dollars, but I know that there's a lot of homes in this community that are now eligible for homeowner upgrades. Is that something that would fit into an energy strategy? I know that the Climate Action Committee back in 2019, I believe they actually did a sort of a committee-led project to put together resources for citizens and to try and move that into the community through an education campaign. But now there's actually some money that appears to be available for new windows and in upgrades to insulations and things like that. I'm wondering if how the district might contribute to that and what kind of impact that might have on our energy consumption and energy use, especially in the wintertime when people may not have access to that natural gas.
Yeah, through the chair, I may have to pass this one off to CAO Stat because we did have that recent report on community energy that was led by Tammy. So I'm not sure if it covered any grant opportunities in that report or not.
Well, we have, thanks, Jeremy. And we actually have Tammy, our sustainability and alternative coordinator, on the line here in case you want to take that, Tammy.
Sure. Good afternoon, Council. So to go further from Councillor Carlson's comments, the Community Climate Action Advisory Committee has been working on a energy efficiency program to help residents reduce energy use in their buildings and as well as emissions coming from their energy use. And part of the strategy there is to educate and incentivize homeowners and businesses about rebates and other cost-saving opportunities in line with some of the new funding that's come out. So that's something that the committee is actively working on and that we expect to be rolled out this year. And we're also looking for opportunities with some of the legislation that's coming down the pipeline in terms of retrofit requirements and GHG reductions when folks are retrofitting their homes, to be in line with that. So lots going on at a committee level in that regard, and things that will continue to be rolled out via the committee and through staff to the community in the coming months.
Councillor Barkwell and then Councillor Holmes.
If Councillor Holmes wants to stay on this subject, you can go ahead, because I was going to go back to the report.
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up then. So things like net metering, our net metering program and retrofits and any kind of potential future PACE financing program we might want to introduce, that wouldn't be part of this strategy. That'd be come under some separate strategy that we have, or I'm just wondering how the two work together.
This report has the distributed generation program in it, so the net metering program, and effectively says we have the program in place, we need another year's worth of data, let's revisit that next year. So and ultimately the distributed generation program from the district perspective is a program that costs money, so it ends up costing us money to run that program, and so it's a subsidization program. But the true numbers for that, we should really be waiting one more year before we can actually show those values. So that's as far as this report goes.
Okay, final question is for you, Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. A lot of really, valid points are brought up, such as all the unfortunate people that can't use gas and have really high heating bills, and maybe, and what would they be if we went to time of day metering? But so going back to the report though, and what we might want to pursue, I'm interested in pursuing what would save our taxpayers money, and it sounds like the time of day metering would be a possibility. And if council, I'd like to throw that out to council, that we maybe, as Jeremy suggested, there's some money left in the budget for this, that it be directed towards investigating that option. I can see Councillor Patton brought up a good point, but maybe that would make it more economical for someone to buy a power wall to continue to heat their house during that peak time when you want to try and reduce consumption, but you still got to keep your house warm. Things like that. Can we focus in on one or two items here and give direction to staff to pursue?
Thank you, Councillor Barkwell. I guess that was your question. And thank you for raising that, because that's the next thing that we need to do. Jeremy has in his conclusion, if we're okay with the evaluation criteria and the initial rating, that's the first thing. And secondly, if there are certain projects, as you've suggested, Councillor Barkwell. So let's look at the first piece first. Is council comfortable with how the criteria, how the different topics were evaluated and the initial rating? Councillor Holmes.
I certainly am, except for geothermal. I certainly think that is you know, seeing that we have the school already doing it, to say that it's not feasible for here, it's seems counterintuitive because it's already being done. So I would, if we're talking about energy and not electricity, then I would certainly want to see that, you know, looked at again. But the rest of it, I think, is great.
Did you want to speak, Graham, or?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I was just going to say we could clarify that in the next draft, that the initial cut, our evaluation was about electricity production through geothermal, but certainly there is heating options through thermal as geothermal,
Yes.
as we see with the school. And just
Yeah.
to tie up that point, I've actually met with the superintendent and on that point explored, is there possibility to tap into the one that they have if we do the rec facility expansion, and they're saying their current load and need is actually drawing almost the entire capacity of that geothermal. Doesn't mean it couldn't be expanded in some way, but then we'd have to look at the footprint as well. But just that had come up early in the conversation, so I thought I'd raise it now.
Yeah, that's great. Councillor Barkle, and then Councillor Patton.
I think the question was more, are we happy with the weightings given to each of these topics, like 10% for strategic priorities and 50% for economics? And I think I'm happy with those weightings. As arbitrary as they are, you could say one should be 15 and the other 20 or whatever. It came up with a good result. So the answer to that question from me anyway is yeah, it's appropriate, I believe. In response to Councillor Holmes' comments on geothermal, I think that just because the school district is doing it doesn't necessarily prove the economics of it. I think they had a grant, and this study, they looked just simply at the economics of a standalone system without subsidization. So I think that's one of the reasons it would come out quite low. Geothermal sound nice, but unless your input costs are really high, they really don't pay. We had discussions about that very recently, and yeah, so.
And on top of that, given what CAO Stat just said about them using their full capacity, but, you know, it doesn't mean that it's off the table. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just, in regards, if you don't mind, to the 2.12 for the thermal energy, one of the things I'm wondering is, I know City of Kelowna partnered up with Fortis, and they did a methane gas or a biomass generation system in Kelowna's landfill. I'm just wondering if if there's those type of partnerships that we can realize up at our landfill in regards to biomass generation, which especially if we're partnering with somebody like Fortis, would be a greater benefit than what we have here, where we would take that full brunt of the cost ourselves. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the chair, 2.11 is a waste to energy section, and that's the syngas. So that's where you take your wood resource and you gasify it and you run a turbine, and that creates the electrical energy. That gas can also, my understanding is it can be put into pipeline as well with natural gas to some extent. Fortis is, to my knowledge, looking for partners for that. Our wood resource isn't quite big enough from what we've seen. We need more. And there is grant opportunity for it. Summerland has looked at that in the past, and so far it hasn't moved forward.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Do we know what our methane gas output is up at the landfill at all? Have we ever dialed in to see what our readings are coming out of there?
Through the mayor, if we have, I'm not aware of it, so I'd have to take that away as a follow-up, Councillor Patton.
And besides, we have an organics facility coming online, so there would be even less opportunity to use methane gas. Just saying. Yeah, it's absolutely something that we can look at. I know that at RDOS, they looked at Campbell Mountain, but the infrastructure costs were just so out of line that they look for that biofuel cover.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we've heard from Councillor Barkwell and Councillor Holmes. How did the rest feel about the evaluation criteria and the initial rating system? Good? Okay, so you have an answer to A there. Now on to B. I'm going to ask you, Councillor Barkwell, to speak again, if you could, about something that you would like to see more research done on by staff.
Are you suggesting that I put forward a resolution for staff to pursue more research on, say, time of day metering? Yeah.
I would appreciate that, but first I'd like to hear from all of the councillors if there's anything else, and then we can look at including those items if there are any in the resolution. Does that work okay, Councillor Barkwell? Okay, so other than what Councillor Barkwell would like to see more research done on, is there anything else that any members of council would like to see? Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm all for doing more research on metering. Basically, I agree totally with the priorities as set out here. And so, you know, I just, the only caveat would be that it doesn't take any away from any of the work we're doing on voltage conversion, because I think that's, as we see in the score, that's we get more bang for a buck pursuing that. So I presume the two can work together, that one doesn't have to be exclusive of the others, but just to confirm that. Thanks.
Did you wish to confirm that?
Confirmed.
Thank you. Okay, that's an easy one. Councillor Traynor.
I just have a question about peak energy use right now. Have we ever published data or let the public know? Like, I know that we've said when the peak times are, like July through August, but have we ever been able to share that information in terms of specific times in the day where it's peaked at all? I just think that's really interesting information and that people would want to know that. And I bet we would get good buy-in if people knew that, if they, like I would for sure, like if I knew that peak times for air conditions in the summer were, you know, during the day, I would do my laundry at night for sure. So I think that I really like the modern metering and I'd like to learn more. But I guess my question is, have we ever shared that data, or do we have those specifics?
Jeremy, did you want to respond to that, or okay? Tammy's on the line as well.
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair, and if Tammy would like to speak up, she certainly can. So since I've been here, so for almost 3 years, I haven't seen any campaigns to educate the Summerlanders on that subject. We do have our newsletter. We do have Facebook. The electric utility, I do want to see more information out on Facebook on some of our successes in that, and get maybe this is another item that we need to be leading the charge on with the public. I'm not sure how well it will be received and actually see some benefit from that, but certainly some people will take action on it, and anything's better than nothing. So, and for the cost of a Facebook post, that's a good idea.
So could those kind of strategies, would that come under modern metering if we directed staff to do more work on that area? Is that kind of strategy, would that fall underneath there?
Thank you. Through the chair, modern metering, if council chooses to commission a study on modern metering, then it will definitely cover the public engagement piece for sure, because that's going to be a huge part of that project. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Tammy, would you like to speak up on this, or are you good with the response that Jeremy's given? Well, that doesn't sound very good. Sorry. Obviously, you're fine with what Jeremy has given. Do you have anything to add to what Jeremy has said? Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's two things. Well, voltage conversion is a given. Anything else? Over to you, Councillor Barkwell, for the resolution.
First, a question. Are you aware of any other municipalities such as Penticton or Trail or Nelson, looking into what you call it modern metering or time of day?
Yes, through the chair, the City of New Westminster is moving forward on a modern metering program. They, to my knowledge, are not looking at time of use rates right away, but they're taking the first step to changing the meters out.
And then they'll sort of figure out what the rate should be afterwards, somewhere down the road.
And I would add to that BC Hydro right now is doing surveys, lots of surveys on time of use metering in British Columbia right now, and we're seeing them every couple of weeks. So they are seriously considering it because again, it makes sense from an infrastructure perspective and from a utility perspective.
Okay, I'd like to put forward the resolution that the council directs staff to investigate the modern metering for Summerland and to provide a report on the costs and benefits and implications and education required for modern metering. That's so hard for me to say. And any other items related to that I haven't particularly listed.
Yeah, I'll just wait for Karen. You have that good? Okay. And seconded by Councillor Traynor. Is there any further discussion on the resolutions on the floor? Would you like her to read it back? Karen, if you could read that again, please.
The council directs staff to investigate modern metering for the District of Summerland and provide a report on benefits and costs.
Okay. And benefits and costs. Yeah.
I think there was a comment about education. I do think that this piece coming from the sustainability coordinator, Councillor Traynor raised it, I raised it as well, just to try and, before we make any decisions to put in any type of meters, to see if we might get some behaviors changed and get some infrastructure within homes and even within district buildings, if those need to be upgraded or retrofitted. I think that's a really valuable piece that shouldn't be underestimated moving forward.
Yes, and we heard from Jeremy in response to my question too about the efficacy of an educational program in advance, because that helped with our decision making too, right? Okay, so you're clear on the resolution. Any further discussion? Councillor Barkwell.
I would just like to ask manager of a power distribution system, or whatever the proper title is there anything we haven't addressed in that resolution that you are aware of that you think from your knowledge that we should be investigating and looking into?
Thank you, through the chair. I would just want some clarification that if that was council's decision to look at modern metering, then this report as it stands is accepted as it is. We leave this report in its current state, and we will look at now a new report for modern metering. The other one that may deserve a second look is the microhydro, the in-pipe turbine project. And I only mention that one because we are doing flume upgrades. Potentially, we're looking at grant money for that. So this one, maybe we just hold it. And if we see that there's potential funding for that other project, maybe this one ties into that. So just throwing that out there for comment.
Okay, thank you. We do have to receive this for information. Thank you for bringing up the microturbines, because I've been bringing that up for a number of years, as have other people in the community. So if that's something else that maybe could be tied into this grant, that's a great option. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, my thoughts exactly. Is there enough funds that we can look at both the modern metering and the microhydro?
Thank you. Through the chair, that depends how deep we go into each report. And so, you know, we can easily spend 30,000 on modern metering alone.
Well, with that being higher up on the list, maybe that's the way we should go and then look at something different as we move into the next budgeting cycle. Maybe.
I agree. I think I think that if we're going to be looking at some grant monies, I would assume more grant opportunities in regards to our flume, and this would probably be something that would segue right into that as we move forward with those grants. Absolutely. Thank you.
Councillor Burkwell.
No, I was just going to point out, I agree that, with if we go ahead with a flume development, it might be something to fit in or to examine at that time. But in Penticton's report by Midgard Engineering, they looked at hydrogeneration at the dam right at the mouth there of Okanagan River, or the entrance to Okanagan River. And even though, there's considerable flow there and it's right in town, so the distribution, additional wiring and such would be minimal, it still didn't pay at that location, which, be a little bit surprising, but these things always change, of course, as the technology changes. So, but I wouldn't want to, invest in it immediately unless we're doing it, as Councillor Patton said, with another project like that.
Graham.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. And just to remind Council too, it's already in the community energy and emissions reduction plan for us to take a look at. So it might be that one keeps sort of plodding along under that mandate, and this one focuses more towards the modern metering. Food for thought.
Right, thank you. Similar to the voltage conversion, it's in our strategic priorities. So, okay, any other comments or points of discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you. And thank you for your patience, not getting angry at us. Never happened.
I'd like to put forward the motion that we receive the report for information.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Holmes, all in favor? Great, thank you. Okay, Dave, you're up next with the 2020 Statement of Financial Information.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Municipalities are required to prepare a statement of financial information annually. The SOFI, for short, discloses information that is not explicitly found in the district's audited financial statements. The information includes a schedule of remuneration and expenses for employees whose gross salaries exceed $75,000, a schedule of goods and services, as well as a schedule of severance agreements. In total, the district expended $36.6 million in 2020 and had 2 additional employees added to the over $75,000 wage disclosure, bringing the total to 38 employees. The council report, as provided, has 2 recommendations for council's consideration. The first being that the District of Summerland 2020 Statement of Financial Information be approved for filing with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. And secondly, that the Mayor and the Director of Finance be authorized to execute all documents related to this matter. Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions, Council? Pretty straightforward. I'll have someone bring forward the resolution. There's 2 parts to it. Anyone? Thank you, Councillor Patton.
That the District of Summerland 2020 Statement of Financial Information be approved for filing with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and that the Mayor and the Director of Finance be authorized to execute all documents related to this matter.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Van Elfen. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That carries unanimously. On to item 7.3, Memorial Park Playground Downtown Neighborhood Plan Task Force. And this is for Director of Development Services, Brad Dolovit.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. I'm here before you today to consider requests from the Downtown Neighborhood Plan Task Force to delay the upgrading of the Memorial Park Playground, which is a capital works item planned for 2021 to get started in the near term here, actually in the summer. So some background, at our last meeting of the Downtown Neighborhood Plan Task Force meeting on May 19th, 2021, members of the task force provided the following resolution: that the Memorial Park Playground Replacement Project be delayed until the Downtown Neighborhood Action Plan design charrette process is sufficiently completed. To provide some additional context to Council, our chair of the task force has provided an attached letter for correspondence to Council on May 24th, 2021. And for Council's benefit, we've recently, the task force established a proposed scope of services for the completion of a new downtown neighborhood action plan that has been presented to Council and has been finalized for RFP release. Within that scope of work document, there are the following actions that are kind of related to this report topic. First, to create a Memorial Park master plan for the provision of new amenities and enhancements for the community park. And also a Memorial Park playground, bandshell, and washroom facilities are in need of upgrades and revitalization. The plan should include a future plan for these facilities. In addition, within that scope of services document, it was a requirement for the consultant to utilize a design charrette community design process for the completion of a new master plan for Memorial Park. As well, among many of our various meetings at the task force, there's been much discussion of the importance of Memorial Park within the larger downtown action plan process and how the park can be further integrated into the downtown and to be perhaps more of a civic square or plaza, as well as integrated with Wharton Street and the larger downtown area than the current boundaries of Memorial Park. In this discussion, the task force members learned of the potential upgrading of the Memorial Park playground. That's happening this year, and they've, like I've mentioned, they've advised that the Council's recommended approach to delay the replacement of this playground infrastructure until the design process is completed. Just for Council's benefit, we've just recently released the RFP. It went out last Friday for the Downtown Neighborhood Action Plan, and we're expecting that the plan will take a one-year time frame from July 2021 to July 2022 to be completed. From staff's perspective, given that there will be a new master plan completed from Memorial Park in a short time period, we're projecting hopefully less than 8 months. Staff feel that it is prudent to delay the playground replacement project until such time that there is clarity that either the playground location for Memorial Park will stay in its current location, or that a new location is determined for where a new playground structure can be constructed. Like I mentioned before, we feel that one of the two above determinations can be made by February of next year, if not hopefully sooner, through the completion of the design charrette process. We have some comments from Lori Mullen as well included in the report in terms of what the implications may be for delaying the playground project, which could result in 5,000 of the 10,000 that the Kinsman Club have committed may not be eligible. I'm not sure. That's coming from Kin Canada, and I know that it says here that this would delay potentially the use of other grant applications towards Kin Canada for other projects within the community. As well, Lori also reached out to Summerland Credit Union, who said that the delay should not impact their funding contribution towards this project. But with that, I'm happy to take any questions with regards to this proposal.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Traynor.
I have a couple comments. Is it okay for me to make those now? Sure. Okay. Well, I really appreciate the work that the Downtown Neighborhood Plan Task Force is doing. And normally I wouldn't support starting a project before we have a plan. But I think in this case, and I haven't made up my mind or anything yet, these are just some of my ideas that I'm thinking about. Unless we think that that playground is going to be moved, like it's been there for years and years and years, and unless we think that there's a good chance that it's going to be moved, I'm not sure that there's a whole lot of value in waiting. The playground's really old, and I don't want to necessarily say it's dangerous, but it really needs to be replaced. And I'm just worried that if we delay it, that priorities might change, we might not have the funds available. And so those are just kind of things that are going on in my head, is that the playground's really important to kids here, and it's needed to be replaced for a long time. So while I appreciate the point of waiting, I just not sure that unless we really think it's going to be moved somewhere else in the park, is there a problem with going ahead with it? So like I said, I don't have my mind made up. I'm just throwing that out there for consideration. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to formulate a question out of what Councillor Traynor just said. Is there a reasonable chance that the site of the existing playground will move? I would think that there is, or it wouldn't have come up, but asking the question anyways.
That's too early to determine. Unfortunately, right now, there is some ideas about how the park can be reimagined, or a new vision provided for the park. We had a great meeting at the last meeting. We had representatives from the Parks and Recreation Commission, the chair and vice chair, committee, Parks and Recreation Committee, came to our task force meeting, and we talked about what type of park we want Memorial Park to be in the future as a community. Do we want it as a civic gathering area, as I mentioned before, or is it a neighborhood park for some of the residential people that are living in close proximity to the downtown? And which of those two angles should we be focusing on? And there's also a tourism amenity type of approach as well we could be targeting with the Memorial Park as well. So there's some unique ideas being thrown, I know, on the table by the task force members, some of which would influence the location of the Memorial Park playground.
Thank you. Any other questions related to your comments?
No. Oh. No, I just want to hear what other councillors are thinking as well.
Yeah. Okay. Question?
Yeah, I do have a question. Might be one for Director of Finance. I'm wondering if in our financial planning, we actually have money that's put aside for Memorial Park in the next 2, 3, 5 years, other than for this playground. Are we going to create a plan that has no money connected to it, and then spend the playground money to try and make some of that plan come to fruition? That would be my concern.
So through the chair, so just looking at our capital budget for the next 5 years, we have $250,000 allocated for the playground equipment in 2021. We have $50,000 allocated to the bandshell stage enclosure in 2022. I thought there was another one somewhere. So there are 1 or 2 projects that are currently slated a couple years out. If that answers Councillor's question.
It does, thank you. Just to follow on that, does it, other than cutting the lawn, are there costs associated with things like the pathway and maintaining the horseshoe pits and all of that? Or are those just considered general maintenance?
My understanding, and Chris Johnson could correct me if I'm wrong, but that would just fall under regular maintenance down at Memorial Park.
Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, a question regarding the funding from the Kinsman. I'm just wondering if we've heard anything further since the report was written about from the Kinsman Club, and if they're worried about having that money in their account, can they still make the donation to the district and we can have it sitting in our account?
I'll pass that question off to Director of Community Services, Lori Mullen. I understand she's on the line.
We haven't heard anything further through the Kinsman. However, they did ask if they could issue a check sooner than later. But I don't have anything further to add.
Well, if they're offering, we'll accept it, right? Councillor Carlson.
This one, I know no one can tell the future, but I know that lumber costs have gone way up, steel costs have doubled. Just wondering if anyone's considered whether or not the price of playground equipment, which I'm assuming has gone up with these things, might balance back again, or does the price go up once and then it's going to stay there forever? Perhaps someone with lots of local government experience would know. It's just a post-COVID world question, I think. I think it's worth thinking about how much bang for our buck we might get this year versus next year.
Lori, are you able to, I'm not expecting you to bring out your ball, but are you able to provide even a comparison from the costing, what was it, 2 years ago, to what it might cost now for like? I know that it was more expensive than we expected because we initially were talking about 3 different upgrades, right? Do you have any further insight on that, or to help with Councillor Carlson's question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. When we looked at it a few years ago, we had $60,000 in the budget for just the Memorial Park playground. So we've learned from that process that wasn't nearly enough, and that playgrounds were going up year after year significantly. So we felt that $250,000 would create a really unique and a destination playground beyond replacing like for like. So looking to do a little bit more than what we already have there. As far as costing today in this year versus what it could be in 2022, I have no idea what the difference will be. I know it's a big spike this year, but I don't have any comparison playground projects of playgrounds that have been built this year and what those costs are. It is something I could do some research on, but I don't have that at my fingertips.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Elfen.
Comments yet?
Questions? Oh, comments are fantastic once we get something on the floor to comment on.
I'd love to put it on the floor, Madam Mayor, but my computer is glitched and I'm hoping during our break somebody can fix it. But I can't read anything right now. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Carlson.
Just before I put something, or someone put something on the floor, a question. I was unable to attend the last downtown plan meeting. I know that at the meeting that Mr. Matuzzi presented, one of the things that he stressed was that in order to create a vibrant community and to start that building of your downtown core, one of the things you need is something to attract people to that location. And it wasn't necessarily just a cafe or just a single, a store or a bakery. There needs to be something there for people to come and to do and to see. And I think at the time we talked a little bit about the playground and how, this was on council's work plan and this was going forward in 2021. And there's a bit of a question there, I think, about whether or not we need to do a playground first to bring people and then be able to build on that and build around that, create a little bit of a buzz, have a reason to come downtown, or whether we need to create a plan and then hope that people will come once that plan is done and once we finally get a playground in place. And so that, I think that maybe Councillor Holmes has an update on what happened at the meeting following that, when this actually came forward as a motion to postpone the playground, and why, what is it that's going to attract people downtown if not a playground, and what was the committee thinking would be the incentive there?
Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, I can respond to that. So I don't think anybody even contemplated the thought of not having a playground there. It was just, where is the playground? And I think one of the biggest challenges for a downtown plan is, if you think right now we have downtown here, we have a memorial park there. And if you really want to create a great downtown, how do we blur the boundaries between downtown and Memorial Park? And if we're talking about having a whole lot more people living downtown, and if we're talking about creating a vibrant downtown which is going to attract a lot more people and having events and things like that, Memorial Park it just we don't have enough space in Memorial Park to do some of the things that we might want to do, in which case the amenities, such as the playground that are in the park, maybe they could be better placed somewhere else to create more green space for multi-use purposes. That's kind of the way I was thinking the discussion went. And so I don't think, nobody was saying don't put the playground there. They're saying maybe that's just not the best place to put the playground. And until you do that whole charrette exercise and envision the whole, look at Memorial Park as part of the whole downtown, we don't really know that yet.
Okay, is there someone that would bring forward do you have a question? Okay.
So in that conversation, was there talk about doing the Memorial Park charrette as sort of the very first thing in a downtown plan? Is that something that is an option? Could that be done in August, and by the end of September, we have an idea of what the charrette results are and what Memorial Park might look like moving forward, even though the actual final, stamped and signed document for council with all of the downtown plan won't necessarily be done until next summer? Or is it something that we cannot do in stages like that?
Your Worship, to Councillor Carlson, I think August is pretty tight timeline. We've asked all of the proponents to the RFP to provide us an engagement plan, which would include the design charrette process. We didn't put any hard and fast timelines on when certain things were to be completed when. We have kind of a general project schedule, which again, we're targeting probably around that February mark next year for a draft plan. And definitely, I think from project sequencing and laying this out, that the Memorial Park master plan should be probably the first thing that is talked about. It's definitely going to be probably one of the most important aspects of the larger downtown action plan. And the task force has recognized that. Some of the lessons we learned from Mr. Matuzzi as well is kind of built into that lens of focusing on the amenities and the assets we have within the downtown area first, and that vision of where we want the downtown to be first. And so I do envision that the charrette process will happen early on the process. However, we've given that flexibility to the proponents to structure it the way they want, with that draft kind of timeline in February next year.
Okay. Someone like to bring forward a motion? Councillor Holmes.
I'll bring forward the staff recommendation that council delay the upgrading of Memorial Park Playground until the design phase of Memorial Park Master Plan is completed, and that staff prepare a bylaw to amend Financial Plan 2021-2025, bylaw number 2021-001 to incorporate this change.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Seconder, Councillor Barkwell. Okay, further comment.
I think we need to put some sort of, I understand that there's a timeline on this plan and on getting the master part for Memorial Park done, but I do think that this is really important, right? We've been talking about this playground for 5 years, and we need to build this playground. I think that we'll get a lot of buy-in from the community if we tell families that we're doing this charrette process and that it includes, what kind of playground and where is it going to be and all of that. I think it's will be a very valuable planning tool, but I can't see us going into summer 2022 without a new playground right there. And so I'm not going to vote for this motion unless we can have a deadline and we can make sure that in spring of 2022, there's some equipment on order and it's being installed in that playground, because we just gone through this over a year of COVID, and the one thing that kids have been able to do is go play outside. But I don't think that's going to stop. I think they're going to keep playing outside. So I think we need to create a proper playground in this community, because other than going to the elementary schools, which you can't do if you're not a student at that school unless it's after school or weekends, we don't have a proper playground in this community. And I think it's time that we build one.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you so very much, Madam Mayor. I apologize for my computer. I'm hoping someone will be able to rectify this problem in the break. But yeah, I have to totally disagree with this motion. I am the alternate to the alternate on this committee. As Ron Matuzzi, when he did his presentation, a lot of downtowns, a lot of these things are built around existing assets. And in my opinion, this is a 5-year wait for this asset. I think you couldn't ask for a better location in Memorial Park. It's away from Wharton Street, traffic-wise. Yeah, we can do a charrette. We can look at different locations, but have you ran that by the horseshoe pitch people? There's a lot of unanswered questions here. Build it. This is a massive asset for this community that we've been waiting for 5 years, and the public deserves it. Kinsman wants to put money towards it. Credit union wants to put, everybody sees how vital this is. Build it. Let's work around it. What a wonderful asset to work around than to sit and say, oh, we're going to wait, and then maybe a year from now we find out that is the great location. Well, I think it is a good location as it is. It's away from traffic. It's, it's across from the new development. I think we have some outdoor gym equipment going into. I think it's a great spot, and I'd like to see us go forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Elfen. Further discussion? Councillor Traynor.
Like I said a while ago, I do value the input that the Downtown Neighborhood Plan Task Force is doing. So I do, and I understand where they're coming from completely, and I do consider everything that they bring forward to us. So I appreciate that they did this. And I did read their letter, and I thought long and hard about this. But I think we've been talking about this for a long time, and it's an asset that's really needed. Like I've heard from some parents, I haven't personally experienced this, but I've heard the equipment, it's wooden right now, and apparently wasps nest in certain parts of it, and so kids get stung. Like there's just so many issues with it. And it's such an important thing. It is a draw for downtown. I mean, I bring my kids up from Trout Creek, we go there and then we go get a coffee, we go get bread. And so I think it's doing a really good job right now, and that getting a new playground there will make it even better. And I'm also concerned that that there'll be a delay and that priorities might change. And also I'm concerned about rising costs. We know what the costs are right now, and we've got a commitment from a couple businesses and groups. So I think that we should just get on with it. And it's a really important part of Memorial Park, and it will always be. So unfortunately, I don't see a good enough reason to delay.
Thank you, Councillor Traynor. Anyone else? I just wanted to say, hearing from the three councillors that have already spoken in opposition of this, it seems to me that that is the best spot in Memorial Park for the playground. And hearing that, yes, the playground is not going to go away. It absolutely will be an asset. In somewhere in the downtown area, I can't really envision it being, even within Memorial Park, being in a different spot. However, I'm not part of that downtown neighborhood plan committee. So it's kind of hard for me to say, but I do know that this is something that not only the downtown neighborhood plan, but the Memorial Park and the playground equipment there, we have wrestled with that. Well, the first part of it since 2015, and now the playground part of it at least for the last 2 years. So I think I will probably vote against the recommendation as well, because I would like to see that taken care of, and another thing that is done for this community and for the people that not only live downtown, but that come in and use that park with their children. Thanks. Okay, if there's no further discussion, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, so that is defeated. All of us but Councillor Barkwell were opposed. Oh. Thank you, Brad. We are 20 minutes past our break, so we're going to take a break now. Apologies, Mr. Maya. We are going to take a break now until 3 o'clock, and then we'll resume.